Right, problem 2. The dreaded black box application, we've called it.
Yeah.
Talk us through, how that works out and plays.
Yeah, and I think I've got a lot of experience of trying to look at and understand and decide how to transform legacy applications. And what I always find is that, the architecture and the design of these and the documentation of that design is often done, many, many years ago. And often the documentation was great 20 years ago, but it hasn't been maintained, right? So to find out what that application does, you can't trust that documentation. And we hear a lot, well, we think it's right, but we don't trust the documentation. If you go and look at the tests, those were the tests that were ran when it was first put into production. Are they maintained? Are they automated? Can you rely on a regression path to say this is exactly what the rules in the system does? So you end up having something where you kind of can't trust the documentation or the full test coverage. The knowledge is in people's heads, but it's on code that has been written a long time ago and maybe not been maintained, refactored, technical data, adhered to over the last years. So you've got this kind of what we call like a black box system where you're scared to almost look into it to find out what you'll find, what skeletons and kind of hidden complexities will be there. So, we use the term often software archaeology. It's like trying to find out what the original intention was, what it does now, and what the gaps are. We hear a lot of we see a lot of examples where teams have turned more agile and have taken their legacy systems and just, incorporating small add-ons to it to try and add value. And the kind of the technique there is for the coders documentation, which is great on a well-architected, well-structured new product. Yep. But when you're trying to take that approach on a 20-year-old kind of legacy system, it becomes a lot harder to work out what it's doing. So I think this is one of the big challenges of legacy modernization is trying to actually really understand what that application does, where the logic is sitting. Often, we use the term monoliths. I did a presentation at a recent conference on sort of breaking down the monolith and understanding it. And, in our mind, you've got to do that if you can have a sustainable product at the end of it. But a lot of legacy modernization projects just treat it as a black box, just say, let's find out what inputs we've got to give and what outputs, and let's just keep it as is.
Yeah.
So,
I think almost where you get into, and I think we'll get into the fat of this in the following weeks, is the re-engineering process almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And I see a lot of large initiatives whereby the new teams on the new technologies are doing the kind of, the engineering good practices and trying to build a sustainable application. And then that company or that initiative will set up a separate team for legacy, and a separate team, a BAU team, to try and, kind of bring that legacy into the new world. So there's always a bit of a disconnect there, and it's always seen as, well, just do just what's needed on the legacy. And what is always missed is the level of hidden complexity that you have in legacy systems, big structured monoliths with code at the wrong layers, validation code repeated and maybe inconsistent, business logic not easily, kind of extracted. So, then suddenly the hardest jobs are in that legacy kind of BAU team, and you're expecting them to just offer you out some APIs or something. So they take the easiest solutions they can, either run it through a code automation or wrap the code, etc. And the re-engineering doesn't happen in the areas that you really need that re-engineering.
Yeah. And sliding into a slightly different topic, those complexities and the complexities of having all of those separated teams that aren't essentially working together, that's before we even start talking about onshore versus offshore, right? If those
Yeah.
teams are in other time zones and whatever, it's even more difficult to get an organic, well-structured team play, right?
Yeah, and it's always we always have this vision of sort of multi-stack, skilled developers who understand many technologies, across all of the stack. And the reality is that that's very difficult, to be the jack of all trades, across all technologies and understand legacy and the new technologies is hard. We try and have a kind of a philosophy of T-shaped developers where people are broad, but then we'll have certain specialities, right? So in reality, on a legacy modernization project or a legacy transformation project, you need multi-skilled teams rather than just individuals. So you need teams of individuals who understand the legacy, who are skilled at trying to extract out that business logic, who know the new technologies and understand what is needed to be able to implement it in the new technology, have great design and architecture skills, and can break down problems, right? And you don't often get that by saying, well, we're going to give part of it to a company who knows the legacy, part of it who know new design. You've got to bring those teams together in my opinion.